Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion about media production, and our second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. And today, it's your questions. It's your questions. If you've got questions, of course, you can throw those into Makana. Vote on those questions. We've got 2 hours to answer them, and we'll go as long as you keep asking them. So go ahead and ask those there. You can also go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global, and you just ask the question anytime you want, 24/7. I think probably a third of the questions we have come in from that QR code. Remember to ask one question at a time. If you list a bunch of questions in one question, if you go into the QR code and you list a couple, like 4 or 5 questions in one question, we'll skip it. So just know that it's one question at a time on the QR code. Otherwise, we get a little overwhelmed. But go ahead and throw those questions in, and let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Bill, what do we have?
First one comes from Douglas Carmichael this morning, and Douglas wonders, when implementing Dante, do you need to have a primary and secondary network for optimum performance, and can those be on the same physical media but different VLANs?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, you could put them on the same network, but generally it's not recommended because you start getting Dante issues, and Dante gets really finicky. So I have Dante in a completely separate network dedicated just to Dante, and it's not a big deal, just a little late power over internet, Ethernet.
Yeah, I think the question is not so much should they both the primary and backup be on the same network? And I don't think you want to do that. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, the idea of having a secondary network is so that if the primary fails, that you have redundancy. So secondary is generally going to have an entire another ecosystem, so another switch, another cable, obviously. But one of the incorrect settings would be putting your primary and your secondary on the same switch. So you do not want to do that, and that's in the Dante certification. So you want to read through that stuff. I'll put a link in the chat as to some of the possible configuration issues that you'll run into if you try to put both of them on the same. So you want an entirely different subnet. So it's totally so.
Well, I think he's asking
what can happen
VLANs,
is that like a DHCP rogue.
So he's asking about VLANs. So I guess the question is not same switch.
And I'm saying that you wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, you just wouldn't want to.
You wouldn't want to put. But I'm saying it wouldn't conflict if you put it on 2 separate VLANs with their own subnets.
No, yeah,
it wouldn't
correct.
be advisable.
It would not.
But it wouldn't break.
Yeah, it wouldn't break. But the idea of redundancy is that if that switch fails, or if a rogue DHCP server hits on that same, then you're on a different network entirely. So there's just some of the things to watch out for because, the idea is you don't want your audio completely dropping out in the middle of a big show.
Yeah, diversifying any kind of backup if it's not diversified, it's not a backup. It's just another way to connect to it that could possibly make it worse, but not make it any better. So I totally agree with both Mitchell and Guy. You want to have different cables, different routers, like everything should be, everything, any place where they share, that's a single point of failure or a SPOF, as we call it. And you don't want any SPOFs. No SPOFs. Next question.
Paul Wallace in Starling Plaza, Texas says, a Saturday Night Live host, Saltburn and Euphoria actor and apparent babygirl, Jacob Elordi, in the season opener, struggled with microphone issues all night. What went wrong? Otherwise, decent show, he notes.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw a little bit of his open, and I did note, it was funny that you would bring that up, because I did notice that he sounded very off on his mic. I have a feeling he probably made a request to have the mic in a place that is not where they normally put it. It might be that he wanted a T-shirt and he doesn't want it to show up, or he wants to be on a collar, or he wants to, or it could just be a bad mic and they didn't swap it out, and maybe they weren't. I can imagine though, like the moment I saw him start to talk, I was like, what is wrong with that mic? It sounded very low. It didn't sound like it was scratchy or breaking up. It just sounded low I didn't watch the whole thing. Now you're telling me that it happened the whole night. That's borderline unacceptable that they didn't fix that during the show. The only thing I can think of is that he was sensitive to having the mic in a certain place that didn't work. That's the only reason that you would have that problem. But I did notice it immediately when I looked at this is last night or whatever, or yesterday I saw it pop up on YouTube or whatever and watched. I was like, oh, I don't even know who that person is. Why is he on Saturday Night Live? So I just opened it up to see, and I didn't find him interesting enough to keep on watching it. But I did notice the mic immediately. So you're definitely on to something there. I just don't know what it was. Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, it being the season opener, what could be a new sound crew. And, SNL used to use overhead boom mics for a lot of stuff, especially since it's a live show and they need to have some kind of backup. But it could be, and they usually used to only use lavs on the Weekend Update. But, maybe they've gone to 100% lavs and something died and they had to go back to a boom or something. And that's why it heard more of the audience or something. I'm not sure. I don't remember here. I watched the open, but I don't remember hearing a problem necessarily.
Yeah, I thought that they used labs in the open. I do remember seeing a lot of booms. I thought that the booms were backups as opposed to using. I mean, I thought they had labs in there. I don't know anything about the production in Saturday Night Live. So so it could be a boom. It could be, you're right, that it could be a new crew or a new system that this was the very first episode of the season, so that you're right that it could be just a new crew or a new system that they decided to use that did not work. Yeah, there's a lab there pointed down. I wonder if they gave him I can't tell from there if they and I don't think this would happen. So I don't want people to say that I would say something, that someone would do something silly. But if that was a cardioid that they turned down, that would do exactly what you're talking about. If they pointed a cardioid down on his shirt and weren't using an Omni, so like the BBC, all the mics are down. So and when you watch the BBC, all the mics are pointed down, but they're Omnis, and they do that so they don't get plosives. But if they turned it, people I will say that people with T-shirts and just collared shirts and don't have anywhere for us to put it is always like what are we gonna do here? And so, but usually an Omni will work okay on the collar to one side, and we oftentimes end up pointing it down or to the side. But if it was for whatever reason, if it was a cardioid or supercardioid there, that would be a huge problem. Like that would pointing that to the side would do exactly what we're talking about. I'm not saying that's what they did, but it does line up.
Could have been a new A2, in the skits,
somebody in the middle of it. I mean, we'd be throwing
the skits, so
we'd be throwing tantrums in the back end, like, what is going on with his mic? And there'd be like, a commercial break, we got to change that, and that kind of thing. But in a live show, they may not want to disrupt what they already have working. They might have figured they had it well enough.
It could be they were using Omni mics all previously, and they made a new deal with a new manufacturer, and they went to cardioids and didn't tell anybody.
And Mickey says that the labs go to the PA and the booms go to the broadcast. So maybe it was just a different person running it. Who knows? It's interesting. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Georgios CP in Cyprus. We have a very big historical collection, VHS tapes, Betacam, Hi8, and other videotapes, mostly in PAL, with very important videos that we'd like to digitize. What equipment do you suggest? Conventional equipment, analog, to digital, TBCs, time-based correctors, digital recorders, and setup. He's interested.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
It's a great list. Here's the problem. Unless you already have those devices, PAL VHS, Betacam, Hi8, etc., you're going to spend a lot of money getting used devices that work, particularly in PAL. So best to send it out to a service that can do that for you.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Giorgio, you're in trouble here, and I'm only saying that because these are formats that have been around for a long time, and they do degrade over time. Basically, all Mylar tape, which is what most of these are, have kind of a slurry of sticky and magnetic particles that is what gets encoded with the video picture. Over time, that backing degrades and it can flake, and every time it flakes you'll get a little dropout or a miss or something like that. My suggestion, again, 100% go with a professional transfer service. Pack them up very carefully. Do not watch them, because running them through a helical scan without all the proper things can literally grab pieces and toss it off the tape, and that's irrecoverable after that point. So if they're very important, as you say, let professionals do it, send it off. It is not going to be cheap, but if you need to record, if you need to capture this historical stuff, do not treat this lightly and do it fast. Every single month that goes by, they're getting worse and worse and worse.
Good, Courtney.
Yep, Bill covered most of the high points. Tape degrades and it sheds. It sheds its magnetic stuff, which clogs the heads, which means you've got to clean the heads after every tape. And usually a lot of these companies that do the transfer, especially with tapes that are older than about 10 or 15 years, they bake the tapes to reactivate the adhesive that holds the magnetic stuff onto the backing so that it won't flake off and because it's dried out. But yeah, it's a job for a professional. Usually, they will have a time-based corrector to correct the timing and do all that other good stuff, and blow it up slightly so that you don't get the head switching noise at the top and the bottom of the frame, or the SMPTE time code, which you frequently see, since that aspect ratio usually fits within inside our modern day aspect ratio. So they have to blow it up a little bit to get the line 23, all the teletext and other encoding that was in there, and the lines that used to be scanned out of the frame. And if you digitize it directly, that stuff all will end up in the frame, so you got to scale it and everything. So they will have all that stuff, because it's a daunting task, and then to do color correction on top of that after you get it.
Go ahead, Chris.
And when you're done, Giorgio, please be kind. Rewind.
Yeah, I didn't realize you could bake tapes. I'm not suggesting that you do this, Giorgio, but I didn't know you could. I was talking to somebody last week, and they were like, "Yeah, I was talking to this person, and they were gonna." They said, "Oh yeah, I have that archive from the '70s or whatever on tape. I'll bake it for you and then record it." And I was like, "You can do that at home?"
No.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it unless you have this person that said they were going to bake it at home. They have a lot of experience. So
it happens a lot in audio tapes, like audio masters.
Yeah.
And there's a specific formula to do it correctly. Don't try to do it yourself.
I'm saying don't try to do it at home. I didn't even know that anyone would ever try to do it at home, but this person does it evidently regularly. And but you want to send those out very careful. I have a home tape that's sitting in my garage that I just found, and I was like, I am baking that. I'm not going to bake it. I'm going to send it to the best place I can find, and have them try to recover it, because it would have it's good video. Anyway, so it was a road trip that we took when I was like 19. so I was like, I really want that video back. So anyway, but in that case, I'm going to send it to LA. And I'm going to send it to the best house. I'm going to pay whatever it costs to have it digitized, so that I can, there's no reason to bother to even try it. I don't even want to look at it. I don't even open the box. I just want to take it, send it there very carefully, and have them do it. And it is important, as Bill said, if you have this kind of tape, is to figure out how to digitize it and then put it in 3 places, 2 physical places and in the cloud, to make sure you don't lose what you just digitized. Next question.
Graham Cardwell in Belfast, Northern Ireland says, after an authorized new battery install in my MacBook, I've been suffering from kernel panics that have shut the machine down. I'm also seeing 650% or more CPU usage and 0% GPU usage when rendering. What's going on?
So I guess my initial question would be, when you say authorized new battery install, was that at an Apple store, or was that at an authorized reseller, authorized repair place, or whatever?
There's a guy named Kevin at the mall.
Kevin at the mall, yeah. It's not Kevin at the mall because it's authorized, but I would never, I know that people talk about right to repair and everything else. I would never, ever, never, ever let anyone other than Apple work on my hardware, period. Like, if you have a PC, you can do whatever you want. Do not have somebody else do this. These things are tight. The computers, the way that they're built, that Apple makes them so dense that there is just no way to take those apart. And I've tried, and I say this as someone who did ever try to fix my laptop, and it was just never the same. It didn't have the same problems that you're having, but you could tell that I had opened it and put it back together. Like, it was just a little rattly, a little whatever. It's a really tight fit. You're going to have to take it back to somebody, or probably take it to Apple, and it may never be the same. Like, you just need to know that, and you should never have somebody else do it other than Apple. Take it to Apple, have them fix it. Taking it to somebody else and definitely don't rent those gear from Apple to fix it. It's crazy. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
No, don't take it to Apple, because what they're going to tell you is, oh, well, we have to replace the whole logic board, that we can't fix this, and it'll be $850. He didn't say what year the MacBook was. Usually, if he has
you can repair it if it was made before 1993. It's totally fine. Like, you could totally, anything before then is really mechanical. There's a lot of space in there. I mean, maybe even 1996, but definitely not something before 2000.
I also question his whatever he was using to determine the CPU and GPU usage, because the CPU can't really work more than 100%.
It can't. It's how it calculates the cores. Every core is 100%. So it can be. It can be 650%, and he's just using up all the cores. Yeah.
Usually, in the Windows world, it just does total CPU, and it's never over 100%.
Apple calculates them by core.
And 0% GPU is mysterious too. So I think something may be wrong with the software there. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
That was a pretty good never ever compilation there, Alex.
I
might have to pull that one too. So I've told this story before. I advised a very good friend many years ago, hey, you should get this MacBook Pro, and she bought the thing, and I said, you know what? I normally buy the Apple RAM, but I realize you're a student, you're trying to save some money. I'll put the RAM in it.
Oh no. Did you buy her a new computer?
I broke her brand new computer.
Did you have to buy her a new one? I would have bought her.
No, she took it in, and she was very
nice. And
outwardly she was very nice. She was very upset, I'm sure. But I felt like such a heel. I realized I don't belong inside equipment at all.
It's just it is super like at this point we've gotten to a point where they're packing more and more power into less and less space. And it is so densely packed that when they say you have to remove the whole logic board, Apple's not doing that to make more money. They're doing it because they can't guarantee it's going to work if you do anything else. Like they're just like, and that's why you just want to do what is guaranteed. I have to admit that when a computer on an Apple computer dies so infrequently for me, that when it dies, it's pretty much there's a stack of them over here where I eventually have to get the drive out. But they've been used for a long time, and I use my computers pretty hard. So I'm like, well, there you go. Go ahead, CJ.
And tip of the day is if you do take it to an Apple store to get repaired, and you get with the Genius Bar person at the other side, be really, really nice to them. They have a tremendous amount of latitude in what they're allowed to do. I went in for a butterfly keyboard replacement thing where my command key died. And I was like, yeah, the computer's kind of getting old, but I'm trying to get another couple years out of it. They accidentally ESD'd my logic board and replaced the computer. Like they replaced the logic board when they went in for my key. So like, be nice.
Yeah, that's a general tip for all things, is that in many customer service areas, there is a very wide gamut of what they can do. And they may tell you that they don't have any choice, but they often do have a lot of choice. And, being surly with any customer service is crazy. Next question.
Jeffrey Reyes in Bronx, New York. Why aren't TV broadcasts in 4K today? I was disappointed watching football over the weekend on my 4K monitor in full screen, and it looks so blurry.
Yeah, go CJ.
Well, the amazing thing is a lot of NFL broadcasts during the regular season anyway top out at 720, and a lot of it has to do with the costs. I mean, when you upgrade to 4K, you're not just upgrading one thing, you're upgrading all the things. And the biggest thing is that the last mile distribution of getting that 4K content to you is not there for most people. And even when you go into a modern like Xfinity box that has 1080, the video quality is abysmal. When YouTube TV comes out and says, hey, there's going to be 4K for the playoffs, I'm excited because I'm like, oh, you can actually do it.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
If we're talking about over-the-air broadcast, they're either 1080i or 720p, and some of them actually take their 720 signal and scale it to 1080i, which is horrible. So if you're used to seeing 4K, it's probably over some type of streaming service. But broadcast TV stations trying to save every penny they can because their days are numbered.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, ATSC-1, which is there is new gen receivers, which is ATSC-3, and some of the new TVs, but they're not showing 4K. They're still at 1080i. And I tell you, I was surprised. I went through, because I have an off-the-air tuner with an antenna on the roof, and it went through and collected, 146 channels in the LA area. And of the major networks, NBC, ABC, CBS, only two of them are transmitting in 1080i, excuse me. And ABC, owned by Disney, O&O station in Los Angeles, 720p all the time.
So funny thing about, well, if I can say that. Anyway, your home games may not be at the highest resolution as what's available on the national thing as well, because so here's the real problem. And by the way, 1080i is not 1080 with just interlace. When you see it on your computer, they've made it progressive. And how they make it progressive is they used to try to take the two fields and mix them together, but that never really worked. So what they do is they just take one field and they scale it. And so you're really getting something that is much closer to 960 by 540 than 1080 from that signal. It's technically 960. I'm sorry, it's technically 1920 by 540 that has been scaled up twice vertically. So or you filled in. So anyway, it's not great. It's not great. You are starting to see some stuff that's being done in 4K. Most of the 4K stuff will be direct streaming from the truck. So a lot of times they're recording from the truck. The problem is that there's a lot of places that has to go to get to you. So it has to go through the truck has to be 4K, which a lot of them are at this point. The transmission has to be 4K, which can be done, but is expensive. The entire network backend has to be 4K, which is very rare. And so a lot of times they'll stream at 4K, like Amazon, I think is streaming 4K, but getting it to a signal. And then if you are watching the national one, you might be able to get a 1080p or 4K, like a true whatever. But if you're watching local, it's coming from your local station, and a ton of local stations are all 720 because they just can't afford it. And so there is, because they're most of their other stuff. I mean, most of the content that they have isn't needed to be higher resolution. So anyway, there's a lot of pieces there that they have to upgrade. They don't have the money to do it. Their market is getting smaller. You're watching all these people consolidate and get smaller and everything else. They're probably never going to have the money to go past 1080. They might. A big election like this election this year might be really big. Elections pay for upgrades. They are the thing that pays for upgrades because everyone fills all the airwaves with ads, and so all those ads are they are within reasonability, but a lot of these stations will increase their ad rates because of the demand. They can let everybody do it, but everyone's going to have to pay, a premium to get on. And as a result, usually you'll see all the upgrades that happen in a TV network, except for a TV network doing something like football. But all the little stations and all the little networks and everything else, all of them generally are going to do their upgrades right before an election or right after the election because they have this huge crop of new money that they can spend on what they're doing. Go ahead, CJ.
So the playoffs over the weekend on YouTube TV streamed in 4K, so that's coming right from the truck. But even when it's YouTube TV, because I'm watching on 6ABC Philadelphia, that's why I'm getting a 720 stream. Yeah,
you want to take the other feed. If there's another feed available, you don't want to take it from your local station. Like if you're a local, and once your team, like our teams, are no longer in the playoffs, our YouTube will be much better.
I wonder. So when YouTube does their Sunday ticket thing, is that a direct stream or is that still somehow filtering through a local?
I don't know if I can talk about that.
That would be worth it to me. Like the $350 that it would cost for a Sunday ticket is worth it. Is worth it to me if I can have a higher quality stream.
It is. I will say, as someone who got the Sunday ticket, it has changed the way I watch football. Like it is completely transformational. Like it is I didn't really care about it. It is so convenient to watch football. Like I used to see 4 Steeler games a year because, of all the blackouts and all the stuff and all the weird stuff, and you can't watch it. You can't watch it here. And I'd watch it from India every once in a while because I could do a VPN there and stream it from the NFL, and I'd pay for that. And so I got the NFL network. I got the ticket, the Sunday ticket. And it's not just that every game is available easily. It's that they're doing so much innovation, and that they're just going to keep going. Like next season will be better than this season. But what they do, they have a 4-up. So for ADD people, you watch 4 games at one time, and you just roll around and go, oh, I just want the audio from this one. I want the audio from this one. I want the audio from this one. And if something interesting has happened, you double click on it, and it just zooms up, and you just watch that game for as long as and then you get bored and you go back to the 4-up, and you can watch it there. The other thing is that I now almost always start 20 or 30 minutes late. So I just sit there and watch 20, 30 minutes late. If Tony Romo is not hosting or Chris Collinsworth, if one of those two aren't on it, I will double click between every play. Like as soon as the play is down, I just go and then right back to ready to hike the ball. So I noticed last night I was watching the Chiefs game, and And I know, so if Tony Romo's on, I'll sit there and watch the whole game because I just like listening to him talk. You know, like it's actually technical information that's actually useful. And so, I mean, almost all football commentators are not very good. There's like 3, you know, and Tony Romo and Chris Collinsworth and like one other one is good. Troy Aikman. After that, the rest of them are, you know, not useful. The interesting thing to watch is, for the Steelers, like this is just a thing to watch in production and watch how it gets incorporated into shows. For the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger is now doing a simulcast. So he sits there with this other guy in his, what I guess is a really big basement in his house. I'm sure it's really big. Anyway, it's a gorgeous basement, and he sits there and they've got what looks like, you know, A7Ss with some SM7Bs, and they sit there and watch the game and talk about it. And I haven't quite set up my system to be able to listen to that instead of the folks, but after a couple of bad coverages on the Steeler games this year, Steelers didn't do very well, so we never got the good ones, the good commentators. I think I'm gonna start trying to simulcast Ben's thing and listen to him while I watch the game instead of the folks. But the hard part there is that now I can't do what I do, which is fast forward through everything. Because I fast forward, I skip all, like the most commercial breaks are 10 clicks. So I just go, I just count to 10 and I'm right through the commercial break, you know. And the reason that I still use the old Apple TV controller is because the silver one won't let you do that. Like it doesn't have a short click to go 15 seconds forward in YouTube. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm wondering if you guys discussed this yesterday, Sunday. And it's a football question. Was any discussion made about this thing that happened where the graphic was released saying that the 49ers and the Ravens were in the Super Bowl? Did you hear about this?
No.
Everybody I know who watches the Facebook was saying that this graphic got released somewhere. And they've seen it in multiple places, and it was like
any graphics person worth their salt already has every different scenario made.
Every scenario is made.
Yeah, but if they're really worth their salt, CJ, they're not going to publicize it.
I get that someone
3
made a
weeks
mistake.
early. Somebody made a mistake. I was just wondering if you heard about it, discussed it.
I don't think there's any there. I mean, I think that it's just that someone made a mistake.
Really? Because all season you've been talking about all these lame plays that you think that at least it's possible that they're rigging these games.
Yeah, I guess I
calls rather.
I think that the calls are pretty suspect, and I think that the problem is my argument is not so much that I don't know if there's any kind of plan. My argument is mostly it looks really bad. Like it looks bad when you make. Yeah. You know, and it's more of my complaint is more that the referees should be very careful about calling. And this gets back into media. You're wondering why we're talking about this here. It's because we have all these high resolution cameras and lots of rewind and the ability to replay them over and over and over again. It really ups the game for the referees. They can't get away with a lot. I was watching old games, you know, with standard def. There's a lot you could get away with because no one could see it. You know, now we know
sure who had the ball.
We now know that TJ Watt gets held almost every play, and you can see it in the HD feed. He complains about it, and then you look at it, and you're like, "Oh, I'm literally going to create a show next year called Holding TJ, and I'm just going to literally just replay it after a Steeler game every hold, you know, during it, just to put pressure on the referees." But the bottom line is that I think that they have to adjust for the technology in the sense that when you can't make ticky-tack calls on fourth down. Like you just can't do ticky-tack calls, like lining up in the neutral zone or whatever. That's like a ticky-tack call. But it's because we have all these cameras. Like if you look at the technology of the cameras, like one of the most fascinating cameras that they've added in the last couple of years is the first down marker camera. And they use that all the time. When someone goes right past the first down marker, they can sit there and roll that very slowly. Like, was he in bounds? Was he out of bounds? Was he, you know, and the NFL has all these. And that's it's really put a lot of pressure. The technology that we have has put a lot of pressure on the referees, and it's going to get a lot worse. Sony has been showing technology where they're basically building 3D models of all the players in real time, you know, and they're showing it at NAB. They've been showing it at NAB for years, and it's triangulating. It's building models of the players but it's motion capturing them to the field with all the all these witness cameras, and it's down to like, I mean, it is right on, you know, and I don't know if that's a technology they're using for the ESPN thing with the Manning brothers, but some of the stuff the Manning brothers are doing, like there's one where Peyton Manning's like picking up. He's like picking, or he's showing a play that just happened recently, or a couple plays ago, and there's little 3D models, like little Unreal Engine dudes running around on the thing, showing the actual play. I mean, the tech is going to get way more complicated as we move forward. And the other thing is that, you know, the ability to analyze that data on a team is going to get intense. You know, like when we start doing this, it's not just video. When you start being able to analyze every player and every tick and every way they use their heel and everything that, I mean, people cue in on that a lot, but now it's going to get to be like there's statistics for it. You know, it's going to be really interesting. Next question.
Next one is our first QR code this morning. Mark from San Jose, California says, what explains the Weekend Update segment at this year's Emmy Awards? The background of the segment was a video wall. The tight shots were fine, but the 2-shot showed banding on the video wall. Was that camera out of phase?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Doubtful. They usually gen lock these together, but the problem is they didn't have a very high pitch video wall on that show. And so I think it may be just an artifact that you're saying when the camera gets in tight inside the video wall, the amount of, you know, the scan difference is such that you're only seeing a portion of the scan of that video wall against the full raster of the camera. So you might get into scanning artifacts between the two, or it could be moire between the pitch of the LEDs and the sensors of the cameras. And a lot of times on that show, live show like that, they use robotic cameras in the foreground to avoid blocking the view of the audience. So their little, you know, camera on a post as low profile as it can be. So it's a much smaller camera, and it may not have been connected properly to GenLock, you know, but hard to say without looking at it.
Go ahead, Courtney. I'm sorry, Mitchell.
Courtney covered most of it there. I mean, 2 different cameras, 2 different scenarios, 2 different situations. They may have one with the shutter angle set one way, another with the other. Could be banding from shutter angle. It could be moire from pitch.
Yeah, it's moire.
It's a lot of different things can go wrong.
It's moire. And it's not. It doesn't. The cameras can be identical to. I would be blown away if they don't gen lock the cameras to the screen. That would be like a very low end mistake. But I think that that you do need to do that. Also, you need to make sure that the cameras have an optical low pass filter, the OLPF. And that you'll see that the new Blackmagic ones have it, but a lot of cameras have it. But if you don't have an optical low pass filter, you're more likely to get moire from the screens. And then what happens is that it's the zoom setting. So it turns out that the moire will only show up at certain zooms. And so it's not so much that it's a different camera. It is literally the same camera. Like when we deal with LED walls, we will take the camera from its position and we'll zoom in and out, and we will mark what zooms on that camera from that angle are going to moire, because you'll see the moire starting and then it'll just build up to a full moire and then it'll go down. Now, what we probably saw was streaming processing. So why you see it like kind of shimmering behind them is because it's just the compression not knowing what to do with the moire. I'm sure it just looked like moire in the uncompressed version. And so the compression just didn't know what to do with it. It's also devastating for compression to have those pixels back there. LED walls, when used well, are pretty cool. You can do a lot of cool things. That would have totally worked if they had used a higher quality, if they'd spent more money on the LED wall, but they were cheap. And so that was probably when I looked at some of the shots, it looked like over a 3 millimeter pitch, which is a really coarse one in today's world. If they had gone below 1.5 and really below 1 millimeter pitch, you wouldn't have seen anything, and it would have looked great. You know, if you want
to see an example of exactly that problem, look at CNN every day when they do the interview shows. Bad. One shot looks one way, 2 shot looks different. It's all over the place.
But it's the zoom level, and it's the LEDs, and LEDs are just horrible. You know, they can be done well. You just have to put the money into it to get them. You have to get below 1.7 is like the outer reach of anything you should use on a broadcast. And still you need – the other problem they had is that they were right up against it because they're trying to reproduce what it's like to be in that show. And you have to get some distance there so that you're not you have to let them resolve into the depth of field. It's a problem that obviously I've had to deal with a lot.
What's the magic pitch angle?
It's not you just want to be below 1.7. It's not pitch angle, it's pitch. Pitch is the distance between the two LEDs. So each LED the pitch is between, what's the distance between them, and they have to be very close together. So the highest quality walls are below 1 millimeter. You can't curve those walls because there's no place to curve them. So they tend to be flat. The lowest I've seen that you can really curve are over 2. They're like 2.3, I think, is the lowest I've seen, or 2.6, somewhere in that range. You need that room to kind of to turn them, but you really want to be you really need that angle, and you got to do a lot of testing in a lab. Like when someone asks us to do LEDs, we put into the budget a time to put, not the whole screen, but a 6x6 or a 3x3 window that we can test behind people at different distances of, like, this is the LED we plan to use, and we kind of go in and out of it. I spent whole days just shooting people in front of LEDs to see what worked and what didn't work related to that. There's some, from an HDR world, there's some pretty impressive things you can do with an LED. It looks like glass. When you get a great LED that is working, its ability to generate high dynamic range imagery is amazing. Like, it looks amazing in a high dynamic range stream, but you have to get all the other pieces right. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, if you've ever had a chance to see the Sony at a trade show or something, because it's beyond the reach of most people's wallet, crystal LEDs. They use, instead of using discrete red, green, blue LEDs next to each other or in a matrix, they put a red, green, blue LED emitters in a single hole, and then it projects onto a little bit of diffusion, so that you never see the discrete pixels on them. So it completely avoids that problem. Even though it's not as high a resolution, it avoids that problem completely. But they're millions of dollars.
It's so beautiful. Like if you ever get to go to, we'll go to it at NAB. If you ever get to see the Sony booth at NAB, and they have a wall there, and recently they've been showing like the 8K HDR 120 frame per second on those walls, and you literally will get vertigo if you walk too close to it where you can't see the edges. You'll get vertigo when they do jib shots, and they do the jib shots, and it's incredible. Yeah. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Clive Kirchner in Souk, BC, Canada. Sunday, Alex mentioned a basic kit he sends out that includes a ring light with phone holder. What else is included in that basic kit?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Just as a quick aside, I'm surprised that Alex would send a ring light out, because ring lights generally cause those weird reflections in people's eyes and glasses. So, I mean, Alex is here. He could say if he does or doesn't, but I don't think he does.
We do. The reason is it came down to I didn't take them seriously until I realized that Guy was making them, and so then I started looking at them and playing with them. And so this is the kit that we send out. This is it comes with a little tripod that's there, and it comes with a. Obviously, it's brand new. So it comes with, it's got a, if we can pull it out of the kit, I think here. It's all plastic. It's not the highest quality. It's not anything like what Guy built when he was doing it, but it's this little ring light, and it's got a holder, and it's got a little bendy thing in the center of it. And again, it probably wouldn't handle that many uses of it, but it's one that this one is one we can actually send and let them keep. It's like $50 or $30 or something like that. And then it's got USB power, so there's a lot of easy ways to find ways to get power for it. The light is not good as a high quality ring light. There's a lot of things, but you throw this in and it solves most things. And with the tripod, this tripod happens to be able to open to be very low. It can be as low as like 12 or 15 inches, and it can go up to like 60 inches. And so it allows you to adjust for a lot of people's places. We've sent out lots of other kits. The issue that we've had is that people are like, oh, I don't know how to hook it together and everything else. In this case, this one's built only for an iPhone. So this is designed. I want to bring a person in on an iPhone. This is what I need. So this will pop in. The only other thing we send is either a USB-C or a Lightning to Ethernet. Or the Lightning one is a little more complicated. It's got extra little bits and bobs. But so we want to get them on a hard line. We want to get them into an iPhone. They've got a ring light. It looks at them. It is not the best solution. It is just the solution that we get the least amount of. Like, you know,
just use the mic and the phone.
So,
the microphone on the phone.
Yeah, in this case, that's the most basic kit that I've been designing. I set up that kit for something else, you know, for some, you know, and so the after that, the next kit up from there is really sending a good mic. Like, we don't care. Like, so for Michael Krasny, we send an MV7. The problem with the MV7 is that micro USB gets loose, and so you have to be careful of that. So once they get it working, don't touch it. And then so that we send that out and possibly an Ethernet adapter if we need to. The next step up from there is to send them, you know, some kind of USB camera, and we start sending lights. And usually the lights are NAND lights, the Lumapads. And then as they get bigger, we go to the 68Bs are usually where we go with the NAND lights. And then we start adding computers so that we can really know that everything's working. So that's Mac Minis with the same web cameras and usually a monitor and stuff like that. And then the next step up from there is using, you know, 6Ks and, you know, mix pre's and stuff like that. So those are the scale of the kits. But we did need to find something that we could just hook. Especially when you're working with a lot of creators. In this case, it was a lot of creators. They already are using their phone all the time, and they're very resistant to using anything else. Like, you know, like they're like, why can't we just use my phone? So, and again, you have to, especially when you're on a really tight budget, it's better than nothing. Like, it really is. Like, you have to look at. We had to get very kind of thick-skinned about it, because there's still a lot of things we don't like about it, but it's better than nothing. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
And addressing Mitch's problem with the raccoon eyes, that has a really large circle light, you know, ring light.
It's still prone to it.
And since you're using the mic and the phone, you want to get the person pretty darn close to that phone to pick them up. And so usually the reflection will be out of their glasses since they're within a foot or two of the phone, you know. And
it happens in the social media world, especially if you're doing an activation for social media. They're really used to seeing that highlight. Like, that is a highlight that is very common for them. And so it's something that we notice, like, oh, that's not optimal, but it's not something they notice. Like, they're like, oh yeah, that's what happens when you have a ring light, you know. So it's not. So I don't think that it's as you know. It depends on, again, what your market, you know, what the market is that you're doing them on. We'd love to send things where we can get them off center, we get a better light, we can get it up higher. Little, again, like a Lumapad 25 or whatever is a great little one that you can throw in there. I love using the Pavo Tube 6Cs. We love sending out. I've got piles of those because we send them out and you put them horizontal up above, or let them stand on either side. You get a great light. So those are other lights that we use in that environment. They're small, they're easy, they're battery operated, so that you send them fully charged and you don't test them too much, they're going to work through the entire show. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Well, the other thing I was going to say about ring lights, they use them a lot in beauty shoots only because since you have a ring of light surrounding your face, that means the angle of incident of the light hitting things like wrinkles or moles or any kind of skin imperfection is going to diminish that greatly. So for that particular look, if you have somebody who's maybe older, somebody in their 80s or 90s, and you want them to make them look really good, those ring lights can be a great solution for that kind of thing in a facial shot. So just another, you know, every light has its purpose, and it's something it's really good for and something it's not so good for. And ring lights are exactly in that category for me. They can do great things when you use them well and not do well when you don't.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael, do you think we'll see Apple kill the Mac Pro in favor of a branded expansion chassis and rack housing for the studio?
Bill?
I kind of feel like the Mac Pro in its heart was designed for professional users who kept saying we need cards and we need slots, and it's not a really good computer unless you do these things. And at the same time, they were working on the new Apple Silicon things like Studio and things like that were such a jump in power that they kind of knew you weren't going to need that big a housing and all those card slots and everything going forward. I think they designed it to just quiet everybody down, give them time to work. I would not buy one again. I think it was an interim solution. They were manufactured, I think, in Austin, and I'm not sure those lines will last.
Are you talking about the M series Mac Pros or the Intel series Mac Pros?
Well, the Intel series was what we were coming out of.
That was kind of because that was really the
last big gasp.
Yeah, maybe not. But anyway, go ahead, Mitchell.
I kind of disagree with that. I think that it's going to remain as a unified device with the slots and watts built in, as long as it's able to push as much data between the CPU and the new bus, the PCI cards. Eventually, I think when Thunderbolt gets really, really, really fast, it already is fast, they may consider doing that and just going with an expansion chassis. But for now, I mean, for example, the Mac Pro can do like how many 8K streams?
Yeah,
it's like some crazy number, like 16.
Expansion chassis are really not Apple. Like they're just like expansion chassis. That's just weird, you know. And I think Apple wants to provide a solution that is going to be clean, and I think that is clean. My next computer will be the Pro. Like, and I knew it when I bought the Studio. I was like, I'm gonna. But the problem that I'm having is, for instance, I'm setting up my kit and I'm using Memo, but I also want to experiment with being able to use the ATEM, and I need to get I got my SDI ATEM back from out of storage, and I'm gonna, I want to be able to have all the hardware do those things, and and be able to do it with software. And the issue is that and right now my Studio is just out of ports. Like all my ports on my Studio are used, and so having 8 lanes of Thunderbolt, having cards that I can put in like a quad link from Blackmagic, and now have 8 SDI out. Imagine being able to put a couple cards in there and get 16 outputs out of it, along with a whole bunch of other I/O. It's worth it for me to go down that path. I'm saving up. The reason I don't have one now is because I started saving for the headset like 6 months ago, when it looks like I just flippantly bought the headset. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy the headset. No, I started putting money away. I did the Chris Fenwick thing. Started putting money away ahead of time. And just started, plowing it away and getting ready to buy that headset.
You're waiting for the M3. That's what you're waiting for.
I wouldn't buy one before I got the M3. Absolutely. Like I would never buy. I don't have the money now because I just bought a headset. But I would not buy one before I went to an M3. Next question.
Next question comes from Paul Wallace in Starling Plaza in Texas. Forget ChatGPT Plus and its $20 subscription fee. Microsoft Copilot will let you access GPT-4 Turbo and DALL-E 3 technology for free. Is that all you need, plus Grok to be fully AI equipped?
Go ahead, CJ.
Kind of. So the Copilot does get you into the GPT-4 for free. The trick is you're limited to 30 interactions back and forth. So if you get into really long-term creative stuff where you're having a conversation, it's not like 30 per hour. It's 30 per thread of conversation. So you're going to get in deep, and then it's going to say, "Oh, we're done. Come pay your $20."
That's no way to live. Go ahead, Harshid.
I'm going to take the underlying part of the question is it going to fully equip you? No. I would say also look at what Bard is doing with Gemini, and there are other options there. So if you're going to just stick around in the ChatGPT world, then sure, maybe it might help you to be in Copilot. But Gemini and Bard from Google have a lot to offer too.
Good, Courtney.
Yeah, I've found that Copilot is much more accurate than GPT 3.5, and I've entered stuff in. And it hallucinates a lot less. It has a lot more reference, and it shows you the little tags that link to where they found their information from. So it's all documented. And in DALL-E 2, DALL-E 3, I think is what they're up to, is not near as good as Midjourney, but it's getting better. And the reason they limit you to 30 interactions on a single chat is to prevent you from getting by their filters, which happens if you just keep continuing banging it with the same string of information. It eventually will work its way outside the walled garden and allow you to corrupt the filters that they put on there to prevent you from doing anything, untoward.
Yep.
So that's the reason for that. You can just start a new chat and keep going. It doesn't limit you in the number of things you can create a day.
But is that thread going to be in the new chat? Will that chat be acknowledging what was done before? Like it's
no,
not the same,
if you're doing a cumulative, if you're having it like change,
right.
Put glasses on the guy,
right.
Turn the penguin into a frog. It won't modify you can only do so many updates to that before it starts to. And same thing with the text responses as well.
Right. Go ahead, CJ.
The other thing worth noting is that access to GPT-4 over the API is now available to anyone who has paid, at $5 to build up your credit purse. So you can usually, for most people, get GPT-4 for less than $20 a month if you just use pay-as-you-go via the API.
Next question.
Georgios, CP in Cyprus, is back again with this one. Thank you all very much for your excellent work and advice for everyone. Could you please suggest a disk indexing software for Windows from your experience? Tried to find your suggestion from another day, but it was only for Mac.
I don't have one. I don't know if Courtney has one or any of our other PC users have them. I don't know of a, and it's just mostly because we haven't done it. So it's not the kind of thing that we spend a lot of time talking about. But what you are looking for, I can tell you mechanically what you're looking for is a service that's going to just all you want to do is index the drive. Go ahead, Courtney. Wait for it. He can't find it. He's lost the windows.
I completely lost my mouse. It completely disappeared. I was trying to research. There used to be something called Super Directory, that would build a database, travel through your hard drive and through all the directory trees and build a database, but I can't find it anymore. The reason is, the search engine in Windows is constantly indexing your hard drive. And so it's already pre-indexed. You just type into search down there and limit it to what you're on your hard drive and you'll find it. So that's why most people don't really need those kind of tools before that would build an indexed database. The only reason to do that is if you want to print it out or give it to somebody else who's not using that particular machine. And there are some tools out there. Xtree used to be in the old days, a DOS crawler that would build an index and could output it as a CSV file. Look around. Do some research. I'm sure you'll probably find one. I haven't used one in years, though.
Next question.
Jason San San Augustine in San Diego. Is it possible and a smart idea to record 4 1080p feeds into a single 4K hyperdeck? And if so, how and what part of the chain can I insert 16 channels of audio into from a DAW?
You can. You definitely can do it. I think the question with the hyperdecks is I think that they're 12G inputs. The 4Ks are 12 or 12. They are. I don't think that they have individual quads going into them. Maybe some of the older ones do, but if you have a newer one, I think it's just going to want a 12G input. And so I think that might be one challenge. You'll need something that's going to do a 3G to 12G conversion. So it's a little box that'll have, it has a 12G out, it has 4 3G ins, and then you plug them all in and it'll build the quad for you and send it out there. And you can do that. And so record it. I believe that you want to put all the audio onto whatever is quad 1, I think is the one you need to put the 16 channels on. That all said, I wouldn't do it. I don't think we've done this for transport. There are the 8K hyperdeck, I believe, is built for this. So I believe the 8K hyperdeck has the individual inputs because it has 4 4K inputs, but those 4K inputs will handle 1080p. So the 8K hyperdeck will record, and it's designed to record 4 individual 1080ps that are all synced together. But the 4K ones are not really able to do that. So now you're going to get into having to grab those quads later. It's not, you can do it, I think. Again, we've definitely packaged quads with 1080p signals for 4K and use those for transport. We have not done them with records. There's no reason why you couldn't. It's just that it'll be really inconvenient on the other end. To kind of manage those. You'll have to kind of figure out you have to be very precise. You'll end up with a pixel from another quad, into your quad there. So you do have to dial in by numbers to make that work. Anyway, I wouldn't recommend it. I do think it's possible, and I do think that all the audio, the hyperdeck can definitely handle 16 channels, and all of those channels should be on, I believe, quad 1. Next question.
Aaron Cody in St. Louis, Missouri says, what is your preferred site or formula for calculating shot framing based on sensor, lens, crop factor, and so forth, especially for someone who isn't really a camera guy? Go ahead, CJ.
One site that I've used a lot and had success with is DOF, as in depth of field, dofsimulator.net. It allows you to choose your camera, choose your subject, choose your focal length, choose your sensor size, how many blades are in the diaphragm of your lens, how far away is the subject, how far away is the background, and even save some settings. And it helps when you're trying to pick a lens.
Mickey suggests Director Viewfinder, Airy, MCS, and DENS Precision make ones with PL mounts. Next question.
Sarah Doyle from Falls Church, Virginia says, for up-and-coming aspiring production people and broadcast engineers, what tools do you have in your troubleshooting kit? And she's thinking specifically about XLR sniffers, testers, troubleshooting monitors, and so forth.
I think I actually grabbed it to make sure I had it. The tried and true onset is this Q-Box. This is and it has, I don't know if Mickey can probably go, but the Q-Box is something that has been something, you can see this one's got dust, it's been sitting around, but it's got, you have a lot of different sources. It can generate tone. It has a speaker in it, so you can just plug an XLR into it and hear what's coming out of that line to see if it's there. In addition to that, Mickey suggests a multimeter, which I highly suggest as well. The other thing you may want to look at is, and I don't have it pulled up here, but Digital Forecast makes a video interrogation monitor. There are more, the Fabrics makes a really expensive one that's $7,000. The Digital Forecast one is about $800, and it's a great one to plug in to be able to look at the basic things you need to do to look at a input. And when you're talking about engineers, a lot of truck engineers have digital forecasts, sitting around. And I used to forget what the name is, but enough people ask the question that I've now got it stuck in my head. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, Whirlwind and Behringer, I think, make cable testers, similar ones I think that you put up there, Alex, for testing all types of cables, XLR, Ethernet, everything. I carry a little portable digital oscilloscope for analyzing analog signals. This also has a tester in it, which will tell you what voltage, what frequency, what any analog signal is. Even a component tester that you can plug transistors into, or any component into it, will tell you whether it's a capacitor, a resistor, a choke, whatever, and will tell you what it is and what its value is. That and a decimator MDHX for debugging SDI signals is great, or HDMI signals, because it'll tell you what frame rate, resolution, frequency they are, and it will fix a lot of things as well.
Yeah, the decimator MD Cross also has a lot. It'll generate a lot of signals. The problem is you can get it into states where if you're not plugged into over USB, it's kind of hard to get back out of it. So I tend to have one cross and lots of MDHX or the MDHXs because they're easier to kind of get to quickly. Next question.
Tim Snyder in Louisville, Kentucky is up next. Is there a device like the ATEM Streaming Bridge that will allow me to send video in high quality across the internet into the ATEM? Inbound traffic to the networks we're typically using is near impossible. We have used Zoom in the past.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, when using something like Zoom, you're really going to squash the color. So, you're going to get a reliable transport, but at the sacrifice of great quality. So at the highest end, you're going to see a high vision Makitos, but then you're looking at, $10,000 for the encoder and on the decoder side. For this show, I believe we're using an Osprey Talon, which if you look at that site, there's the encoder, which is this model, which is, I believe, around $1,500, and then there's a decoder as well. So you can do it that way. But if you want to go a little cheaper, try the Streaming Bridge. You might just have to go to your router and open up a port. That might be what the issue is. So you want to do a little bit of network troubleshooting or have somebody who knows this stuff inside and out. Another one that I use that's on the inexpensive route is this one called the PTZ Cam Pro Ank 3, and I'll show it for another upcoming question, which basically allows you to have SDI, HDMI, and then you could send SRT, and you can receive SRT all in the same. So it'll encode, stream, and it'll capture and decode, and you could convert to NDI as well, and that's called a PTZ Cam, and I'll put a link in the chat for that.
Yeah, and if you have some kind of decoder, a lot of it is figuring out what kind of computer or decoder that you want to have there that's going to spit that back out again, whether that's WebRTC like Zoom or an SRT stream. One thing you may want to look at is a company that's getting pretty good at doing this kind of transport. They're working on a lot of stuff in this area, Stream Voodoo. So you may want to look at what they're producing as far as being able to deliver both high quality video signals. The big thing with Stream Voodoo is you can turn the dial up, so you can say I want a 20 meg WebRTC stream. So those are the kind of things you can say I want to have a lot more data going through at 4K, 60, that type of thing. So it just depends on what you need, but that's something to look at. But there's a lot of hardware boxes. The Monarch from now I'm going to forget the name of the company that makes it, but the Monarch is another one that will do both encode and decode. Matrox makes the Monarch. And there are some pretty big companies that are using hundreds of those as outputs for their networks. So it's something to kind of take a look at as well. Next question. Actually, we'll jump into the second hour here in just a second. But just a quick reminder that we have Final Pixel is going to be our guest for tomorrow. On Wednesday, we're going to talk about phase versus polarity. There's been a lot of back and forth here, so we're going to have a discussion in the understanding the difference between phase and polarity, what they both mean, and how they're different. Is going to be our Wednesday discussion. Michael Cioni is going to be here and he is the founder of Strata, and he's been on our show before. As someone at Frame.io, and so he's great. Genlock on Friday, and of course the open questions on Saturday and Sunday. And we're here for the second hour of questions. If you have questions, go ahead and throw those into Mokana. You can throw those in. You can vote those questions up. You can chat amongst yourselves. All of those things inside of Mokana. If you're not in Mokana, you can use the QR code or actually just go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. And ask those questions 24/7. You don't even have to ask them for today. If you're watching this video later, you can do it. Our only request is one question at a time. If you see more than 2 question marks in your question, you should split them up because we're probably not going to. If you send us 5 questions at one time in one submission, we probably won't answer it. Next question.
Next question comes to us from Tlaloc Lopez Waterman in Orlando, Florida. I have a show being remounted in Annapolis right now. The media server arrived dead on arrival. Physical damage to the main board with a PC motherboards. What is the best way to figure out what can fit in your case and work with the rest of your hardware?
The media server.
Shipping damage to the motherboard, that's not ever a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I used to do is send videos to folks that worked in my crew of what people were doing to our cases, because I would often have a window seat and I'd be able to see the cases loading in and watch them throw our. So it wasn't like this is what they're doing to some cases. It's like this is what they're doing to our cases, and so you really have to think about, especially on a PC, the shock mounts and so on and so forth are important. If you're that becomes we're very careful. PCs are really hard because the boards, especially if it's not what you get is the boards get loose, the memory gets loose, things bash and to your point, damage the motherboard. We do the best we can to try to actually when they get shipped in a case in a case that is. I try to avoid putting PCs in luggage. We do it. We have done it. But we learned we had enough failures with PCs and luggage that we try to avoid that. It doesn't mean we always do, but a lot of times we will we'll ship it. If you put it back into its own case, or you put it into a really nice case in a cardboard box and you put it in FedEx or whatever, and it gets to the other side, the chances of it being in good condition are much higher than the chances of it being in good condition after you checked it. So and then a lot of times we work off of laptops if we have PCs at this point. We don't really use a lot of hardware. I understand you have a lot of I/O, so it's probably necessary. But those are the things we kind of think through there. And again, we've had people drive the PCs places where it matters because, and this is why a lot of times we have primary backups because it's been a real problem. I would say our failure rate is near 10% of shipping PCs, like an actual desktop. And a lot of these were like little shuttles, little PC shuttles. Those are the things we probably sent the most, but we sent a lot of different ones, and it's not been super successful in that area. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, for me, it was always when I was traveling a lot, the combination of you don't want things to get too big because the size of the case you're shipping sometimes can have a substantial impact on the cost of shipping it. But without some sort of negative space and, in the racks designed for shipping, there was all sorts of coil things that really floated the material inside. Even then, if we didn't open it up and go through everything and make sure all the cards were seated correctly, there would be a lot of incidental errors on plugging it in and trying to expect it to come up. I agree that's less now that laptops are getting so powerful that, those are really meant to carry around and absorb shocks where PCs generally aren't so much. But it's a challenge. To me, I always thought of it as white space around the gear. I tried to pack things so that there was enough foam or something else in there so if they got hit, it wouldn't directly transfer to the machine inside, but you never know. And boy, handlers can be rough. And as you found out, you can hit just the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, there are things you can, you have shock-mounted cases which have little rubber bumpers at all 4 corners or 8 corners, 6 corners, whatever, every corner, to absorb if you have a rack mount, that whole rack is floating inside the case. It's less of a problem now since everything's pretty much gone to switching power supplies, but a lot of times there'd be a heavy power transformer on a motherboard somewhere that would break off if there's any heavy shock. Another solution that helps is there's these things called shock watch, and you can stick them on the outside of the case. There one time, if that case is dropped or thrown or dropped from a high distance, it triggers a thing and turns a little indicator red here. If you put these on the outside of your cases, the handlers will be a little more careful with them because they'll know if they throw it, it may trip that shock watch, and you could then hold them responsible for any damage that happens in the shipping. And they're available in a variety of different 25Gs, 10Gs, et cetera. And they're available from Uline if you're looking for them.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I used to enjoy building my own ATX powers and motherboard setups with Windows. And I did the shuttles, too, the little boxy shuttle devices. But the problem is that a lot of times when you're building yourself, you don't really test it for shock situations. So I found that buying an off-the-shelf PC like an HP workstation, like their Z workstation, actually did pretty well. And also you can get into it very quickly just with your fingers. You don't have to worry about a hex wrench or some other device to get into it. And they were very well tested. And the other thing is we used to take the removable drives out when we shipped them. I don't know why, but it just seemed like it was better to have it on your carry-on and then the computer in the downstairs luggage.
Go, Chris.
Yeah, Talalika has been in this business for a long time. He knows how to pack stuff. That wasn't the question. The question is what motherboard fits in his box. Maybe we could revisit this. We had a big discussion on how to pack stuff. Talalik knows how to pack stuff.
Put in your case. Well, I think that sometimes we have some folks that are asking questions that are less about that are for everybody else, so we can discuss it in front of everybody else. Talalik probably knows the answer to this question. I think he's just putting it up there for the thing. I don't know enough about how do you figure out what fits in the case. As far as if it's a PC case, if it's the PC enclosure that we're talking about there, I don't. Yeah, we can just move on.
Probably an ATX style.
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Well, transition to the quieter PCs. They're a single board. There's no heavy parts on them.
He needs a lot more than that. His issue is these are like rack mounted or larger cases that are there, and so I don't know if case for me means Pelican case. Like I don't think if someone said enclosure, I would think immediately as a PC. So I'm not sure exactly what the thing is there. So the as far as what cases go into what, there's a lot of places online that have those kits. Since I built one PC and decided that I would never do that again. So I don't know enough about it. My son built PCs. He'd probably tell you how he figures it out, but I really hated the experience. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next. He says Luke Combs has kept ticket prices down on his tour by keeping the production modest. In the times we're in, is this a path forward for the concert industry?
Probably not. Here's the problem. He may have kept his ticket prices down, but if there's a large demand for his tickets, his fans are still paying a ton of money to get in. And so, artists charging less money for their tickets doesn't necessarily translate to fans. It just means the artists are making less money. It doesn't mean that the fans are, because what happens is that the artists decide what they're going to charge, and they've made a decision, how many tickets can we sell? And they make that price, and maybe he lowered his production to be modest and made it worked in his head. But if he goes to StubHub, he's going to see his tickets being sold for $800 a ticket, and when he sold them for $50. And so his, him being austere just means he makes less money. That's the problem with this whole market right now. There's a whole bunch of problems with it, but the problem with the ticket market, a good example is, and I'm going to say this name wrong because it's Icelandic and I don't understand how to say it, but my daughter loves this band called, this artist called Lofi. and she plays kind of jazz. It's really good. She's really good. I just can't say the name correctly, and she always tells people they're not going to be able to say the name correctly. So when we watch interviews of her, but my daughter loves this artist. The artist comes to the Masonic in the Masonic Hall in San Francisco. I need to get a ticket. So I go up I sit on Ticketmaster or whatever, or Live Nation or whatever that is, and I'm there at 9:55 for a 10 o'clock purchase. And I just sit there waiting. At 10 o'clock, it pops up and it says, there are 8,900 people in front of you. This is an artist that I didn't even know existed until like a week before. There are 8,900 people in front of you for 4,000 seats. Like, there's no chance there's no reason for me to stay, because there's no chance I'm ever going to see a ticket. How many of those tickets are being sold by StubHub, are being bought by StubHub? That's the real issue, is how do artists take control? What really needs to happen if the artists want to do this is they should charge a little bit more, but they should take control of the ticket process. Ticketmaster doesn't want to do that because they have money in the resale of the tickets. So Ticketmaster's making a lot of money on this. But the artists need to be able to say, I'm going to sell to my fans only. I want to, and I want to, what really needs to happen is when you purchase the ticket, it is non-transferable. So building tickets that are non-transferable would mean that artists could charge more and their fans would pay less. But making non-transferable tickets is going to be a thing, because artists are getting tired of them cutting down their prices and then somebody else making the money instead of them. Like, that's what's happening. And this is their lifeblood. This is how they make money now. They're not making money on their music. They're making money on their tours. And StubHub is like a leech, just sucking money out of them. So that's really the problem. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the venue that these people are going into. I don't know Luke Combs, and I don't know what kind of crowds he draws. Looks like from the picture there in the article, pretty large stadiums.
Large.
So
he's really popular.
So you need
really
to, if you play stadiums these days, a lot of the newer stadiums like SoFi Stadium have huge video walls that are 360 degree in the stadium, and if you pay the tie-in charge to use those for your iMag, then you can save a lot of money. You're not having to truck 10 video walls into each venue and set them up on stage like you used to have to do. And it also depends on the type of entertainer you are. If it's Beyonce and you always got 6 dancers and 14 different set changes on the stage and half a 20-piece orchestra backing her up, it's going to be an expensive setup. A single guy playing the guitar, sitting on stage, you can go a lot simpler there if you don't have the June Taylor dancers behind you, and the iMag is taken care of, because in the stadium tour, they're little dots sitting down there on the stage.
But it's all about. I will say that as someone who works, this is what I do: is work on concerts and work on ticket sales and everything else. But the real problem is the resale of tickets. Like, it's not like, and I think that if anything he said is just marketing, anything he said is just marketing. But there's no reason there's no incentive for the artist to charge less for their. This is the problem. Like, when you go to a group dinner, there's no incentive for people to say there's no incentive for people to buy. It's always more expensive because everyone just buys whatever they're going to buy. Because if you spend $8 on your meal, you're still paying into the average if you split it evenly. And so the issue is that in the same way, there's no incentive to make the tickets less, because there's a high demand for those tickets. And if he sells that concert out in 4 minutes, there's going to all those tickets, all that margin of the $1,600 ones for the whatever, that's going to somebody else. That's not going to him.
Ticketmaster, just lock out Ticketmaster.
But it's not. Yeah, that's impossible. But I will say that because Ticketmaster, there's an antitrust suit there waiting to happen. But anyway, but the point is that. And artists have been trying to fight that for a long time. Pearl Jam didn't quite make the turn, but they've been fighting that for 25 years now. But the problem really is the resale market makes it so that what makes sense for the artist is to charge a lot for their. If the artists charge a lot for their tickets, they'll still sell out. And the issue is it reduces the margin for the resale because the resale price of the ticket is the market price. Like, it's a commodity. And so the issue is if not a lot of people buy it, the price goes down. If a lot of people buy them in. So really the artists, in my opinion, in the current structure, should be charging 3 or 4 times what they're charging right now for the tickets, and then just do whatever they want in the concert. I think he does this. He's a country singer. I think he's doing this more for marketing, and he's hearing the people and charging less, and they can see that retail price, and that's what Luke Combs is doing. And then they can make StubHub wrong, for what they're doing to them, which is what's happening. They're doing it. StubHub is, kind of taking advantage of both the fan and the artist. Go ahead, Bill.
So the one thing that I do every year that is in ticketing and complex, but is not in the Live Nation / the big ticket things, is Comic-Con. And I've been going for 20 years now. And it is so complicated what they have tried to build in terms of both honoring people who have been coming and supporting them for years, allowing new people to get into the system, and personalizing tickets to individuals so that you don't just go into a generic thing and you're right, all the tickets get snapped up in the first 5 minutes. It takes us literally 3 or 4 days every year to buy our tickets. And that is a very complicated system of being there on time in the first run, which is usually for the alumni people, but they heavily limit the number of tickets even for their alumni, the people that have been supporting them. And then there's a randomness. You're let into a queue. You are then moved into another queue. It takes a full day to take the first shot at how many days do you want, and can you get the preview night and the rest of that. It has become so complicated that I have actually some sympathy for the people who are trying to turn this into a different kind of ticketing process, because once the demand tremendously outperforms the supply, there is nothing that's going to keep everybody happy. And the last couple of years, we've been like, oh, we only got 2 days of tickets in the first go-through, so now we have to come back next week. Even though we've been there forever and have the legacy behind us, we're still scrambling to try to complete our ticket packages so we can go as much as we'd like after all this. And boy, they've been studying it for decades without the profit motive or the big company behind there. And it's just gotten really complex.
There are solutions. People are working on them. Next question.
I agree with you. I think they're heading there, but boy, it's not an easy lift.
Yes. Next question.
Peter Johansson in Sweden. Any recommendations on decently priced audio routing apps for Mac OS for FaceTime, Skype, WebEx, and so forth, running a MixPre, a digital audio controller, mic, speakers, and headphones?
Yeah, so it depends on whether you're trying to get stuff out or in. To get things in and to route them, generally what you're looking at is loopback. So loopback is going to be the thing that is your general routing. Now, to record things or to process them, you may want to be looking at Audio Hijack, and then the other program to send audio anywhere you want is called Airfoil. All of them are made by Rogue Amoeba. Rogue Amoeba is not a sponsor of this podcast of this show, but we use them heavily. And that on a Mac, that is the way to do this. There's not any other good way to do this routing. So I would highly recommend the loopback, and I would just get the bundle because it's just it has a lot of stuff that's built into it. They do incredible work. We'll see if we can get them on sometime just to talk, because it's a really great set of software. You'll resist it because you're like, oh, I don't know if I need that or not, and then you'll just feel bad about paying more later because all the tools are pretty good. I don't really use Fission or Pizio, but I definitely use Farrago, Audio Hijack, Airfoil, Loopback. I also don't use Sound Source, but that could be another one. So those are the but it's a great set of products. It's the only one to use for what you're asking. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Joe Phillips in Murphy, North Carolina. Short of Dante and my Zoom setup, what are the options to feed stereo PC audio into my Flow 8 tip ring sleeve ports, already using the 4 Flow USB channels from Loopback on the Mac?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, this can be problematic if you're trying to use the TRS input. Just get a high-quality TRS male-to-male cable, and make sure that the audio output on your PC is TRS and not TRRS, because these days they're making a combo jack that is designed for headsets that has a microphone input and the headphone outputs on a single 1/8-inch jack. And that can create loads of problems because it sends DC 5 volts down one of those lines. And if you're going into a stereo audio input with that stereo audio output, it can send 5 volts down the line, and it can create lots of noise and problems. I had this problem recently And the only solution we were able to come up with is to go with an outboard Sabrient mic adapter that goes into USB and gives you a separate headphone and microphone output. And that 1/4 inch is TRS and does not have any DC on it. And it solved the noise problem that we were having. Every time you touch the cable or move the cable, it would give a horrible sound. So,
go ahead, Mitchell.
I'd prefer the USB route, and I would use something, if you wanted to go cheap, the USB ART device. They have a DI with a transformer in it, which is fundamental to get rid of all that hum issues. And if you didn't have a budget, you could spend any amount of money you want. The old sound devices, USB Mix Pre-2 or Pre-2 works great.
USB Pre-2, So the I would not use the ART. It's known for noise, but the SSL Mix one, that's a USB to Mickey had suggested in the forums. Another one that you can look at is the USB Pro, the USB Pro. And that's from Radial, and that's going to be a couple $100, $250, I think. And the one that I use is this. This is what Mitchell was just talking about. This is the USB Pre-2. It's still, in my opinion, the best in class. Next question.
Glenn Moto in Richmond, Virginia is up next. I'm testing Spanish language text-to-speech solutions. I've tried 11 labs and want to try some others. Which others should I try?
I am. Oh, you jumped one. Hold on. You're ahead.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Somebody must have cycled.
We'll
Sorry
get
about
back to that. Yeah.
Let's go back to Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. With a Zoom ISO and Dante environment, I'm able to send each Zoom participant's audio to their own channel on an X32 that has a Dante card installed. Am I able to do that?
Yes. So you can send them all out. And I believe, you can definitely send them all out via in that format, and you'll be able to get them all in the X32. That's how we're doing it here, or that's one of the ways we can do it here. So I would highly recommend it. Next question.
Okay, this is the Glenn Moto question from Richmond, Virginia. I'm testing a Spanish language text-to-speech solution. I've tried 11 labs and want to try some others. Which others should I try? QR code question.
We talked about this yesterday, and on Sunday, and the most amazing demo that I've seen in a long time when it comes to languages and deep fakes was a presentation by the new president from Argentina. I didn't really listen to the content of it, but what they did is, if you go to YouTube, and it was at WEF, and I know people have sent me the. It's going to be hard for me to grab it quickly, but what happened was, and I think it's called Hey. Let's see here if I can find it in my history. We got a minute here. Hold on. So this market, this area is about to change very dramatically. I can say with fair assurance after seeing what I saw. I mean, we've been talking about this in visual effects for a while, but someone took the entire presentation and they let's see here if I can look at my why am I having so much trouble finding my history here? Oh, here it's history. The problem is I watch so much YouTube, it is hard for me to sometimes find the actual one that I'm looking for here. But we had a discussion about it yesterday, and I don't know why it's not in my history. In the wrong channel. Let's see here. Someone might throw it in here. Let's see. There's no history there. Oh, it's because it's stupid. Anyway, so you're looking for I can't think of the name right now of all the bits and pieces of it, but there's sorry?
It's HeyGen.ai.
HeyGen.ai. Raise your hand the next time so I know that somebody has the answer. So anyway, HeyGen is what I was looking for. HeyGen.ai. Check that one out as far as 11 labs go. They did one with Spanish, and what they did is they took someone who was speaking at WEF, and it was the new president of Argentina, and they basically translated it. When you listen to the dubbed version, it sounds old and clunky immediately. Like when you listen to the two of them, the difference in impact that person has, and I don't know what it was. So what they did is they actually used deep fakes to change his actual voice. It matched his voice. It changed his lips so that they would match the text. Match the translation, and they played it out, and it is I don't know how much work. I don't know how much processing. I don't know what was, might have been kind of, done and looked like it was automatic. But it was one of the most impressive technologies that I've seen in a long time, because the problem, I've done lots and lots and lots and lots of dubbing. So we have lots of interpreters that are talking, and we might have up to 16 languages or 15 languages. We've got, oftentimes we have the UN6. And the big frustration for a lot of us is that the quality of the audio isn't very good. The enunciate, how the interpreters speak is oftentimes very monotone. And then you're hearing all the junk in the background. And that's always been kind of like, well, that's what interpretation looks like. And when I saw this, I was like, this is the future, which is that anybody from any language can watch someone talk, and it's Star Trek. It is, they're talking, this isn't real time yet. I bet you it's probably 100 to 1 right now, but they're talking and you're hearing it in in your own language, with their mouth moving the way it should to say those words. Wow. Like it is, and it is going to be, now there's all kinds of problems. You could put words into people's mouths. When they say, I will say, as someone who's used interpreters for a long time, unless that interpreter always interprets for that person, the person speaking, the chances of the large language model being as accurate or more are very high. If the person, so like for instance, some people who do translation all the time, they have people who do it all the time with that person, and they know what they mean by those things. They know what that looks like, and they're going to be more accurate than the large language model. But a generalized interpreter just dealing with people as they come in is going to be, I think the large language model has a pretty good chance of being as accurate as they are. And so based on my experience of watching what they say and all the complaints I have to field later from our clients, of like a Spanish speaking client, someone working at the company that speaks Spanish, heard our thing and said, no, that's not at all what they said. That's the kind of stuff we get all the time. So and they, they're apoplectic about it, and they say we ruined the whole show, and like that happens. Like, and then at some point you realize that's going to happen every show. Someone's going to be upset about that, and so we just warn clients that that's going to be the case. So when you think it's not going to be accurate, it's just very hard to do in real time for anybody, any person. It's amazing though. So it was an amazing demo. I hope I don't know how much they made up in that area or what they did or how much work it took, but you could see the future when you saw that. Like I could. It was really stunning. Next question.
Tim Snyder in Louisville, Kentucky comes up next. Is there an encoder that will allow two different video inputs to encode to RTMP to two different locations, each of those individual streams, currently utilizing two separate encoders for this purpose?
Yeah, good guy.
Yeah, on the highest end, we have the Hivision Makito X4. They do make a single channel version, so you'd have to get the multiple channel version. My question would just be, why not do two? Because you're getting into territory that can be expensive, and failure is expensive as well. If one of them goes down, do you really want both of them going down? So you have the Matrox Monarch, again, expensive option. The PTZ Cam Pro Ink, that's the $795 one. I have one. I wouldn't use it for production. I love the Magewell, Magewell for single channel, Magewell, Epiphan Pearl Nano, and the Osprey Talon. Those would be my three that I would get, and I would just get two separate encoders and call it a day.
Yeah, there's definitely, as Guy said, there's a lot of the elementals that I've owned in the past all have 4 inputs, 8 inputs, 16 inputs. I have one elemental I used to have one elemental that had 16 STI inputs. So it was 16 1080p streams at one time. It was $100-some thousand. So it wasn't. Now it's a lot. It would be a lot cheaper now. So there are ones that you can get lots of RTMPs and process them that way. My tendency would probably be get multiple links and put them together and send them to AWS and then send them to wherever I want. But I think all of what Guy listed out are also very valid. You can, in a pinch, you could totally do it in something like Mimo Live or OBS. I think OBS, 2 instances of OBS. Mimo Live would just do it as two output layers. You can just send out take 2 inputs and send them out the 2 outputs. It's just that you're now software encoding on a computer is never going to have the same frame rate integrity that you're going to get from a low level FPGA. So that's the challenge that you have there. Next question.
Our next question comes to us from John Cohen in Miami, Florida. I use DaVinci Resolve with an external drive that holds my media and projects. I am out of space and want to replace it. I've already done a carbon copy of the old drive, but I can't figure out how to tell Resolve to use the new drive.
Go ahead, CJ.
Hey, John. So you've got your new drive plugged in, the old one's gone, and you're probably looking at a screen like this. Resolve saying it's a bunch of media is not found. It's tempting to right-click on the clip and then just hit relink selected clips, but that's going to want to do it one at a time. What you should actually do is hop into a cut page, and then up at the media pool, you'll see a little thing like this. It says broken link. And then when you click on that, it'll make another screen come up that says, hey, there are 3 missing clips. If they're all in the same directory, you can hit locate, and then it'll relink them all. You can hit disk search, and then disk search will actually search that entire volume to find them. But if you hit locate, find where the new ones are, and then hit open that directory, boom, everything's relinked.
Next question.
Next question comes to us from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. What would be the best or second best software for a multi-quarter? I need to capture video and audio from multiple external devices.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, it's going to be expensive, but that's kind of the price you got to pay for the quality stuff. So that's going to be Softron, Tools on Air, the movie recorder. So they came out with a new version.
And by the way, Softron and Tools on Air are 2 different companies, but they both do they both do that thing. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So movie recorder and movie recorder Express are the 2 from Softron, and Express is £695. So whatever that is in US dollars, but this is the rock solid stuff that you want to look into. So Tools on Air and Softron.
Tools on Air makes an ingest system as well as Softron. We use a lot of the Softron products in general, so we use their on the air, which is the playback system, and we use the movie recorder as well. And you'll be able to get multiple inputs from those to record the video sources, and they'll record the audio sources that were embedded in those video sources. You can also, for recording a lot more audio, if you need to, you can use something like Boom Recorder. Boom Recorder is going to be able to put it on the Dante network and pull all the feeds and record them to drive. Based on some experience that I've had, I probably wouldn't have Boom Recorder be my only ingest point. But it is a really effective one. We still only use Boom Recorder on Intel machines on Mac because we've had some issues with the M series. And then of course, the kind of for us, the standard of recording lots of channels over Dante is Jocos. Jocos are hardware and they're separate, and you can pump 64 channels at them and they'll suck it all in and put it all onto a little thumb drive. Now, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, there's another one I was a little confused there, but the Tools on Air, the one that just came out is called Just-In Mac Lite, and that one's $895. So this one will allow you to record NDI as well. So that's how it came up in an online discussion was what's new. And this one, it's called Just-In Mac Lite NDI, Mac OS-based capture solution.
And Softron will record NDI as well. And Mickey pointed out that it'll also handle Dante. I don't know where it puts the channels in Dante if it's bringing a bunch of them in, but Softron started supporting NDI I think maybe a year ago. So it's pretty new, but it's still there. Next question.
On Oahe Black Bear Marshall up in the Pacific Northwest in Oahe says, my questions don't seem to be taken in the QR code page. They just sit in the window when I hit the submit button, and there's no confirmation they are sent. Am I using the page wrong?
Yeah, there's something going on with your page there. If it's not, it should say thank you for submitting your question and let you do it again. So if it's just sitting there, there may be something. You'd have to let us know what browser you're using. It could be something else, but it should, when you hit submit, it should flip it over. So let us know. You can put it in the QR code if that's what you have access to. We may not put it back on the show, but let us know and if you send us an email in the QR code, we won't talk about it on the show, but we will reach out to you and figure out what it is. We'd love to know what that is if it's actually a user problem. A browser problem. Now, next question.
Clive Kirchner in Souk, BC in Canada. Which would be a better webcam, an iPhone 15 Pro or an Insta360 camera?
Go, CJ.
It's a little bit of it depends. I think the image quality that you get out of an iPhone is better, but you've got to do a lot of extra standing on your head. Sometimes continuity camera isn't as, it just works as we'd like it to be. Sometimes it's a little clunky and you need to pair it with a application like Camo from Reincubate. The Insta360 is really nice if you want to have a camera that you can put somewhere that you can't physically touch and actually have it move around. But I think you're going to find you like the way you look better with your iPhone 15.
Yeah, the 15 I think has a better image quality. Again, you can now zoom in the Insta360. You can move around. You can all the way around. You can also zoom in, zoom out. You can save all those presets. Those are all things you're not going to be able to do as easily with the iPhone. So I would definitely, if you want pure image quality, Colleen, who was on last week with us, came in from her iPhone. So that's an iPhone input that you saw there, and I think it looked pretty good. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway. What mixer or recorder with 6 or more XLR inputs, stereo outputs, and internal multi-track recorder is available on the market except the Zoom and MixPre?
He's deciding, I don't want to use Zoom and I don't want to use the MixPre. The pickings, there's still stuff out there that will do that. The pickings start to get slim as far as, like things that are not very expensive. So I think that in the sub $2,000 range, I would be hesitant. Rode, I think some of theirs might have 6. I don't know if they have 6 inputs on any of the Rodes. I think they have an 8-track or a 6-track one that might be there. So that's one to look at. I would also look at Roland may have something that will do it under $1,000. But as you start to go over that, there's a lot of mixers that, if you're trying to stay sub $1,000 or sub $1,200, there's not a lot of great options in my opinion. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, you might look at Tascam. I'm not sure if they have an 8-channel recorder. They do have combination, recorders and mixers that will record, I think, up to 4 tracks, and have, multiple XLR inputs. They used to make a multi-track recorder. I'm not sure if they still do, that goes up to 8 channels.
Yeah, and again, when we take out Zoom and MixPre, and again, there's our higher ones, Zaxcom and Cantor, and Mickey was pointing out those. So when you go up higher, there are quite a few that you could that you can find. It's just that you're not going to find a cost-effective one. And once you start going over those, I think the 2 leaders in the semi-cost-effective or cost-effective, Zoom and sound devices in their MixPre line. Those 2 are the big winners as far as the quality of the preamps, the quality of the records, everything else for the price, in my opinion. And I think that Zoom being the less expensive version, MixPre being the more feature-rich version. So I'd be very, I don't know, there's nothing else I would use under $1,200 other than one of those 2. Next question.
Jan Bernal in Poland, Warsaw, Poland, says vMix has released a new version of vMix 27. What are your opinions on this latest update? The addition of Zoom connections is quite an interesting move.
Good guy.
Yeah, it's very impressive. They released the beta months ago, and a lot of us jumped right on it on separate machines. So I'm running 26 on what you're seeing me through right now, but I have 27 on 2 different machines over here that I've been beta testing. And the Zoom integration is solid. The other nice thing is the audio routing capabilities, and you can now move audio through different buses, which is pretty cool. As far as stability, it's been really solid. I was thinking that it was going to be an issue, but I've been doing some playouts and using a cloud instance to push video out and into Zoom, and it's been solid. So I think I'm ready to use it in a production, but I don't know. I'm still, even though it was officially released today, I'm still like, I'm going to use 26. So.
I would probably give it a little bit of time to settle in before wait for 27.1 or 27.2 is probably the one you want. Next question.
Graham Cardwell, Belfast, Northern Ireland. This is a reflection back to an earlier topic. For your information, the repair was by an Apple authorized service center that has been there for 20 years plus. Historically, I would rather use a local long-standing business than some spotty teenage genius in the store. Am I wrong? And he's got a 2017 Intel good spec MacBook Pro.
Go ahead, CJ.
I don't think you're wrong. Any repair shop that has has been in business that long is going to stand by their repair if that's truly what's causing your issue. The only comment that I would have to having someone at an Apple store work on your computer is it's usually not the fresh off the training line person who's working on your computer. When I know that they used to actually send every retail genius to Austin or to Cupertino to get genius training to become Apple hardware certified. And regardless of how much training they've had, if they mess up, They have a really, really big piggy bank to buy you a new one.
Exactly. They're not going to nickel. If anything goes wrong afterwards, they're like, hey, here's a new computer, kid. Go stop bothering us. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, and that particular, era of MacBook Pro, I think I'd plug in memory boards, and you can get kernel panics a lot if a memory board is not seated properly, or if there's schmutz on it or dirty. Take the memory boards out, clean them, and stick them back in and see if that solves your problem.
Obviously, what I would do is take it back to that center and have them say, like, nothing's working since you worked on it, and I'd like to be fixed. The problem is you could end up with a lot of back and forth with them. But so what I would say is, if you take it back and they go, oh, sorry, and they fix it for free and they hand it back to you, then you're right to take it to someone who's going to handle it. If you take it back and it's never quite right, or they argue with you for 10 seconds about whether it's your fault or their fault, then you're wrong. So you should never do that again. And so the thing is that, and the hard part with working with smaller folks is they have a nut that they're trying to make, and they're much smaller margins and everything else, and it's just really unadvisable to take it to anyone other than the Apple Store. Those geniuses are trained far more rigorously than anybody at almost any store, unless you're dealing with like the owner and the guy that's been repairing them. But the problem is, with all these stores, what they're challenged with right now is labor supply issues. And so the chances of them having the right person to work on it is pretty low. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Robin Cutshaw in Atlanta, Georgia. How does spatial video differ? Can current tools like Final Cut Pro, Premiere, Resolve edit? And can one post to social media like YouTube and get the full effect with the VP?
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, Final Cut does have what's called spatial conform. So, that's an Apple kind of process, and you can handle it very easily. You conform, and exporting your timeline is maybe a little different. If you have a workflow, and particularly if you have a client who's looking for this, I wouldn't just suggest that you dive in and try to get something out under deadline. This requires a little bit of thought and a new workflow, and pay attention.
So, I don't know what the workflow is right now for Premiere and Resolve. I will say this is a question I think we had that came up yesterday, is do we think that Final Cut's going to stick around? And the answer is definitely. And the reason for this is that Apple controls that pipeline, and Apple needs a place to be able to do things like spatial video and know that they can just implement it. So there's always a place that you can edit and work with it. I would be surprised if we don't see some updates, some more updates to Final Cut in the not too distant future as the headsets roll out. Maybe they'll wait until fall, but I think that there's a high probability we might see them in February or March. I have no information on that. I purposely try to make sure I don't have any of that information. So, but what I will say is that my understanding, and I'll know more as soon as my headset shows up. I'm already shooting video for it. In fact, I'm probably going to shoot a ton of spatial video at NAMM on Saturday. The Saturday coming up, I'm going to go down there and shoot a bunch of stuff in with my phone, and hopefully with the Canon R5, and we're going to cover it that way and see what happens there. But I'm going to want to see what that looks like in the headset. So I'll know a lot about that in about a couple weeks if you ask again. My understanding is the MV-HEVC, what it does is it saves a hero eye, which is typically the left eye, and then the delta for the right eye, and it encases it into one video. So if you look at it in mono and you open it up on your computer in Final Cut, you're just able to edit it as if it was any other video. If you export it out as a mono format, it's just going to export that left eye out, and it doesn't matter that you had it there. If you export it as a spatial edit, it's going to export it with that extra data that's necessary for a stereo. So that's my understanding of how this is actually going to work. We're going to know a lot more about it because I'm going to be doing a lot of production. The reason I'm getting that headset is that I think it's a big market to get into, because regardless, so the numbers right now are on Friday, they sold almost 100,000 units. They had 80,000 in the first tranche. So as soon as you see that date move, the date move from February 2nd to March, whatever, it meant that they had gotten over that first clip. So there's already some out there. It's not a lot, but remember, that's people who spent $4,000 that are looking for cool things for their headset. So there's them paying another $10 to buy your video or your whatever, or even just them being able to play it is very high. If especially Apple is going to be very hungry to promote anything cool that's going into the headset for all those folks. They want to keep them happy. So I think it's a big market, and I think that you'll be able to. But I think that you'll be able to post social media if you're doing it in Final Cut. You'll be able to cut the whole thing, post it to social media. It will make no difference. Post it to spatial if it was all cut in spatial. What I don't understand yet is how the graphics get produced. And, Apple's been working on this for a long time, and there's a lot of spatial graphics that are built into Motion and Final Cut. So I think it's there. I just haven't had to do it yet. Being able to add 3D, graphics that are presented in stereo over top of what you're doing when you're watching it, it's really going to be exciting, in my opinion, of a new format and a new way to play. So stay tuned for that. We'll be doing special second hours and so on and so forth as we move forward on this, because it's an exciting place to go. Next question.
Anawahi Blacky Bear. Marshall is back again with this one. Now everyone's order is in. What do people think of the external battery pack and cable that's needed for Apple Vision Pro? Will it change the way you work or play?
Go ahead, CJ.
I hope I use it enough that I need to buy a second one. That it's only 2.5 hours, but I just hope it doesn't. The other thing is I hope it doesn't get too warm while I'm charging it, because I'm hoping to be able to utilize it for those extended periods.
There you go, Bill.
I'm hoping this takes me back 50 years ago or so. I bought a little dual hang-on-your-shoulder VHS recorder that had a tethered little, relatively small camera. I think it was a Canon VC20 or something like that. I didn't realize at the time. I just used my tax refund to buy it. Changed my entire life. That was where I started shooting. It was cumbersome, it was inconvenient, but it was also so ridiculously exciting to be able to go places and shoot things and bring it back and work with it and get the basics of editing going, that everything changed for me after that. So I can't tell you whether Vision Pro is going to be the same thing. I do believe it will be exactly that for some people. And it's hard to tell who, but some of the early adopters, this will change everything for them.
Yeah, and again, the time we had a discussion yesterday that people are asking, like, why are we doing HDR or 1080p? Because no one's asking for that. When you're only doing what people are asking for, you're throwing the ball to where the receiver is, not where they're going. I vastly prefer to be out in the place where where it's hard and no one else can do it. There's a lot more business opportunity there than trying to compete in a commoditized market. Go ahead, Courtney.
I just don't really like the design of it. It looks like a super smooth soap bar, so it's smooth on both sides, and it has a cable with no strain relief on it. So you're going to have some means of putting that either in your pocket or have some device that you're going to have to buy outboard to clip it or to your belt or strap it to your chest or your back or your side. So it takes a little more engineering to use, because, you got this heavy lump that, what do you do with it if you don't have any pockets? If you're a woman, you have a dress, where are you going to put it? It's problematic in its design, and it costs $200 to replace. And it doesn't have, you can't open it up and just replace the batteries inside. You got to buy the $200, case and wire and everything that interfaces.
Yeah. I don't think the people buying the Pro right now are going to care, but about that.
It won't be a problem, because they're only going to use it for 3 weeks and put it on the shelf. So, there you go.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I think that it's going to be a really interesting puzzle. I want to keep on reminding people as they look at this product is that we are in year 10 of a 20-year release schedule. Like, this is a 20-year program. The product that Apple is designing is probably 3 to 4 versions away. And they are, and this is just them experimenting with all of us. So to figure out where to go with the, and error correcting for the next one. But what I will say is that I think that the number one way I'm going to probably use it is to be probably plugged in. So I'll have the battery. I'm probably not going to use the battery that often. It's really built around a seated position for the most part, or a standing position. So if I'm going to try to do some exercise, or I'm going to try to do something else, then I might use the battery, but I'm probably not going to use the battery as a regular. It's not really built as a walk-around tool. It's really built as a sit-and-watch things tool. At least that's how they've been promoting it and how they've kind of pushed it. So I don't think that it's going to be that big of a deal. And knowing that it's Apple and people paid $4,000, I think that there will be so many ways to attach this to you that are sold on Amazon for $20. I mean, there's going to be 100 little straps and hookups and everything else, because it's a relatively good market to sink into.
Is the only way to power it off AC is to plug the charger into the battery? So you still got to have the battery plugged in to run it off.
I will so be able to tell you that on February 3rd. So
it does say you can power it with battery charging.
What I can say
work
is
while the battery charges, but I don't see any other AC power supplies available for it.
It's not 100% guarantee, but there is a high probability that on February 3rd or February 4th, which is a Saturday or Sunday, I will come in, and we'll try to figure out, I'll figure out how to share what I'm seeing, and we'll put it in there and just do a lot of Q&A around it if people want to. If people don't want to ask questions, then they don't have to, but I'll try to do as much as I can. I might wait until the following week only so that I have enough time to be able to not look completely like an idiot, like, well, I don't know how to do this. So I might try to give myself a little bit of time on it, but we'll do a show and tell pretty quickly so people can get a sense of what it looks like. The number one concern I have is really the weight. I mean, every person that I've talked to that's put the headset on has been like, this is the most amazing experience I've had in VR, and it's heavy. It's really heavy. But none of them have, that's all they say. They just keep on saying it's heavy. None of them have had the cross strap over the top, which I can't even understand how you'd be able to use it without that. But so it'll be really interesting. Zoom, by the way, works inside of the headset. So interesting. Next question.
Chuck Japley in New York City. I video cabaret shows and use two Audio-Technica AT875R microphones via XLR to my Canon XA70. Is the Tascam DR700 a good choice to patch directly into the soundboard through XLR?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, if you're talking about the Tascam, I think you might have been not the 700, the 70D, and if it's that model, I would say don't go that route. I would go with an F6 or something like this that'll allow you to have individual levels that you can control with a knob. So if you need, the XA70 is a decent camera, but the preamps aren't going to be as good as something like this. So the AT875R mics are really good, but you got to give them a good preamp. So this would give you a good preamp, and then you take in those two, ideally it's left and right from the soundboard, and so you would do line level, which this could handle. So you would go, it's got 6 XLR inputs, and then you would feed the mini plug out into the XA70. The other beautiful thing about this is that if you buy the Bluetooth module, you can open up your iPad and see, or your iPhone and see all of those VUs, and it's very comforting to see all those at a glance, and you can actually adjust. Unlike sound devices, you can adjust those levels through the iPad. So this is a really sweet recorder, and it powers through a number of different ways. USB-C, the MP style batteries. It's also got AA internal. So pretty sweet device. I'd be looking at this. It's just, and then it's got 32-bit float. If you feel that you really need to be aware of levels that may drive over what you think they might, and you're not able to ride them, then there's comfort again in having a 32-bit workflow.
And one thing that Mickey points out is that the DR70D has individual pots, little in the front for every channel. So that's one advantage that it has at that price point. Next question.
Robert A. Ober in Houston, Texas. Greetings, panel. I have tried some of the online suggestions for an alternative to Dreamweaver without joy. Anything out there that is similar to the way Dreamweaver works? Not interested in Wix or its competitors.
I don't have any suggestions other than Dreamweaver for those things. I think that the market has changed so much that people are either going to Wix or Squarespace, or they're doing something that's a little bit higher end, and there's Wix and Squarespace kind of destroyed that market of, I just want to throw something together as a WYSIWYG and put it out. I mean, I think and again, the other problem that you end up with is building responsive websites, ones that are going to show up on iPads and iPhones and everything else, is hard. Like it's not something that you just throw together. And so it's something that, again, Wix and Squarespace do really well. It is something that, and then folks that know how to do these build really well. And of course, you're going to get a lot more control. But Daniel Partridge says, if you're on a Mac, look at RapidWeaver. So that might be another one that RapidWeaver might be another one there, and also Sparkle. So those are the two that came in from the chat there. Next question.
Harshid Trivedi here on the panel from Daytona Beach, Florida, trying to keep my brain up to date, so YouTube offers multi-language. However, I don't see too many content creators utilizing this feature. What is a rough how-to for this chain, and could it be an easy lift for creators that might speak Spanish?
Yeah, it's something we need to experiment with. They've been working on this for a while, so there should be a way. I think I don't know how many channels, and again, we should probably do a test on this area. YouTube used to be able to do up to 6. We would use multi-channel or multi-streams. So we'd have 6 different ones that were all under the same URL. Now what you would do is you would click you to a different video. And so in this case, it's sending multiple audio. I'll do some research on it. We'll see if we can't put together a video on that, because it's a really useful thing that I think, and again, some folks that I know are using way more than just a couple channels, but there should be a way to make it available. And it just came out recently as far as going into Gamma, out of beta and into Gamma. So I think that we just have to figure out where it's at and do some testing. Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. What suggestions do the panelists have in terms of video screens for an in-room audience to see content? He notes 85-inch TV or LED panel wall, perhaps, hoping to send NDI to this as well. Thanks.
I think that the answer there would be it depends. So it depends on how many people are in the room. An 85-inch screen TV would probably handle, I would say, maybe 50 or maybe 100 if you have 2 of them, one on each side. But that'd be about it. So as soon as you get over that, you're looking at potentially an LED wall or projection. So people are still using rear projection. Because of it's a lot less expensive than LED walls. And oftentimes you don't have any array, especially if you're going to put it behind people. You want to be careful of that. A lot of times if we build the LED walls, especially for what we call IMAG, which is what you're talking about here, we'll have the LED walls start at 9 feet. So that safely means that no matter where our cameras are, we're not going to see them. So we don't see the array, we don't see the other things. We do something that's analog behind them, and then we do LED above that or to the wings. Put them off to the wings there. But it depends on it depends on how many people are going to be in there, and are they looking at technical content for your presentations and so on. The 85-inch screens are great, and especially if you're using them just for IMAG or just for presentations, you can again, you'll have to put them on both sides of the stage if you're doing anything more than about 50 people. Like they're not that big. You also have to be very conscious to what you put on the slide. Slide complexity is a real problem. If you're doing it for something that's the real problem that you get into is if you're doing government, medical, education. Those are the big ones. Some engineering. Not a lot of lessons are done on how to do slides in those fields, and they're very thick-skinned about really complex slides. And so when you go into a larger organization, they'll get rid of all that text that they're putting onto those things. Like if you have a slide deck team, they'll immediately get rid of almost all the text on your slide. You say the text. They put up images that underline the text. You can always tell when someone's not that don't have a slide deck team, because they put all the text, including they read their slides and they put their text on the screen. And the reason I bring that up is that at 85 inches is not very big if you're going to put 8 bullet points as little 2-liners all the way down your thing. No one's going to be able to read that. And so you can get a lot more on a screen if you get rid of all that junk and just put in what you're going to talk about. You can put the text in that makes a difference. But don't expect people to read a lot of text. Don't put things in paragraph. That's not really what it's meant for. If you're going to send them something later, then build another deck that does that, or send them open up Pages or Word or PageMaker or whatever you want to do and build it for them and make it look nice. But if you're going to produce it for a lot of people, really think about being visual. The reason I say that in this question is because the screen can be a lot smaller when you're not putting up lots of text. That said, projectors are not very expensive anymore. You're going to pay a lot if you do it at a hotel, because PSAV is going to charge you a lot of money, and they run almost every hotel now. And you're going to need to hire one of their folks, and I don't think you have a lot of choices there. If you're doing it on your own, you're going to use projectors. Again, there's a lot of good $2,000 or $3,000 projectors, but generally when we do this work, we're using Barcos. Barcos are Panasonic, and these are really high quality production level. Oftentimes we use 2 projectors at a time on top of each other, which are, by the way, still less expensive than the LED walls. And then we sync those together. So they have tools that we put up 2 grids and we pull them together until they're pixel for pixel on top. Number one, it's a lot brighter. It's closer to an LED, not exactly. There are some companies that do 4 projectors like that, or used to. They got LED wall eventually, but they did do 4 projectors. The advantage of that is that, number one, it was a lot brighter, and number two is that it was a lot brighter, and number two is it had a lot of redundancy. If one projector died, you didn't have to worry about it. So it would just get a little darker, and then you go fix it or do whatever you need to do. A lot of people like LED walls because it allows them to have a fluid. They can build a really long LED wall and have things all animating for the people in the room. We recommend against that pretty vigorously because the largest audience is now online. They're not in the room. When I started doing this streaming, there was 15,000 people in the room. There'd be 200 people maybe watching. It's now completely flipped, where the vast majority of the people that are watching the show are virtual. And when you build those long LED walls, you're basically cutting yourself off at the knees, because now you have to deal with all the, what are you punching in on, everything else. You just build them as 16 by 9s. So you build them as 16 by 9 screens. And the reason that you do that is because the online audience matters more than the in-room audience in most cases. The in-room audience might have paid for it, and I get that. But you have this huge audience that potentially gets bigger and bigger and bigger, or not. And if it doesn't get bigger and bigger and bigger online, it means that you are not serving them well. And part of not serving them well is bad audio, bad cameras, and not having them not feel included, and long LED walls. It's really not a great experience for the online audience. And I'm saying this as someone who's streamed long LED walls for 15 years. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsøy, Tromsø, Norway. I need new tripods for our Ursa broadcast with Fujinon lens with both the zoom and focus demand. Not the cheapest, but not the most expensive either. What's a good budget tripod for this weight class with smooth pan tilt for conference and concert use?
A good guy.
Yeah, this is one where you really want to go to the trade shows and get a feel for them, or find a local dealer that'll let you try one out, or go to a rental house and rent them. You'll see me doing a concert with the Miller Arrow in this shot here that Rolling Stone put up, where I'm using the Miller Arrow. That was a fun show. Miller, Cartoni, O'Connor, Sockler, Vinton, those are all the top brands that I'd be taking a look at.
Hey, go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, if you want smooth pan tilt, you want a fluid head. So that's the one consideration. I have a Sockler sitting behind me right here. That's a Flowtech 75. It's around $4 grand. And take a look, just for the heck of it. Small Rig is now making tripods. I don't have any personal experience with them, but they have a heavy-duty one and a semi-duty one that are way down there in price. But if they work, it's a great deal.
Go ahead, Courtney.
And it depends on the size of that Fujinon box lens you're putting on. If it's a box lens you're putting on there, you might need to go up to something like a Sackler Video 20. These are around $9 grand, but they do have. You can put pan tilt arms on both sides if you want to have separate zoom and focus controls for the operator on each hand. So that might be important. And the cheaper and lighter weight heads usually don't have the ability to put 2 pan tilt arms onto them for independent zoom and focus. Manfrotto does make cheap ones. I don't know if they're going to work for you. It depends on the weight of that lens, and they make some decent ones for around $800 that have pretty good pan tilt fluid heads.
Good guy.
Yeah, Courtney just said what I was going to say, which is be sure to budget in your VariZooms or your hand controls so that you're able to be hands off, because if you're doing hours and hours and hours, it's a comfort for your operators. And not only that, a large monitor that you can stick on top. So bundle it all in with everything fully loaded, and then figure out if you're actually going to need batteries or not, because that load can actually be something that adds to the payload if you're going to be running off of shore power or off of battery.
Yeah, a lot of times when we use batteries, because of that, we'll put those batteries on the tripod. We'll actually attach them to the tripod in a variety of different ways to make sure that their weight isn't part of that process. 100% that the weight recommendations are not just recommendations; they're not guidelines. You really need to stay in that weight. The problem you get into, there's a couple things with a fluid head that you want to think about. There is fluid in there, and it will come out. We've tested this over time, and so one of the things you want to do is, number one, is don't go over the weight very often. I mean, we put things in that are more teleprompter or something every once in a while. If you do go over, for some emergency reason, you got to balance the head. So that balancing the head means you're going to open it up. You're going to make it the least resistance, and you're going to move your whole system back and forth until when you let go, it just sits there and doesn't go forward or back. So you want to balance that head. Balancing the head, no matter what you're doing, is super important because a couple things. One is it's much easier for the operator they're in free space when they're moving around. Number two is that it puts a lot less pressure on the head. So if you're constantly locking the head down, that becomes problematic. What we've done for the most part, or what I've done for the most part when I bought stuff, I had many, many tripods. And when things didn't need to be a fluid head, I needed a fluid head, but I didn't need to operate it a lot, we used a lot of Benros. The problem with the Benros is that there's a little bit of play right at the very beginning when you make a pan, which I don't like. So I'm not as happy, but they handle a lot of weight for the price. The ones that I've gotten in general in the past 10 years have been the Aces, Sackler Aces. There's a couple different versions of them. And then but they're good as kind of general purpose tripods. They're not great, but they're not bad. And they kind of handle the issue, and they're about $1,000, $800 in that range. I think the Sackler Aces are probably some of the best ones. I'm really intrigued by the small rig one. I haven't gotten around to buying it yet, but it does look like interesting. But I'm afraid that I'll be pretty touchy about it. For everything else, generally what we do is I rent tripod heads. Like I rent tripods and heads. They're not very expensive because they last forever. And so you're paying $75 for a tripod, and I'm getting 2060s, 2575s. O'Connor used to be 2060s. I don't know what they are now. They're the same company as Sackler, but Sackler 2575s. These are giant heads that cost $15,000 to buy. And it makes a huge difference. And when you're moving around a big, heavy head, it's not just the quality of the head, it's the weight of the head. The weight of the head is going to give you a much better pan. Now, the other thing to look at is when you said the smoothest pan is the gearhead. And there is in my little bucket list, there's gearheads, and they get really expensive, $20,000, $30,000. My bucket list is DJI makes one that has the handles as a gearhead, but it controls the RS 2 and 3. So one. I played with them. I play with every year. I go to NAB and I just move the head around. It is the most magical thing. And then I go, I can't afford this. It's $15,000 for the whole thing. Next question.
Next question comes from Jesse Mills in the San Francisco Bay Area. What's the tech workflow for the office hours folks speaking remotely at the SVG event tomorrow?
Now, they haven't updated it. We had to cancel that. It had to do with bandwidth. So we're not going to be speaking there because it was all virtual. We were all going to be coming in virtually into that process. I didn't have confidence that the venue that they picked, they picked it for other reasons. I mean, they're not doing a largely virtual event or streaming, and so it just wasn't. There wasn't enough attention, to that thing, and we didn't have the budget to add when I do events where I'm managing the budget. I add bandwidth to places that don't have it, but I wasn't in a position where we had the leverage to do that, and they didn't have enough bandwidth and enough control over that bandwidth to actually make it serviceable. So I'm afraid we had to cancel that. What I am going to look at is to see if the folks that were going to be in that meeting want to do it virtually anyway, and so we'll probably do it here. So stay tuned for that. We're going to talk more about that. It might be another one of the ones like what we did with Colleen. So we may bring that conversation to this venue as opposed to that one, but we choose to not do it there because of the bandwidth concerns that we had with the venue. Next question.
Eric Hertz in Hartford, Connecticut, running OBS on Zoom on Linux works great with the OBS virtual camera feature. Can I now bring in NDI on Linux for Zoom and OBS?
I don't know what the support is for NDI on Zoom. Oh, NDI for Linux. I just don't know enough about it, so I'm not totally certain there. Next question.
John Fisher, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. What are your thoughts on the artists using tools like Nightshade and Glaze to discourage AI tools from using their artwork for training? And he's got links to both of those.
Go ahead, Courtney.
I think you'd be better off just to negotiate a deal and license your stuff to them for training than to try and poison it, which guarantees that they will never use your stuff for training. So you'll be locked out of any revenue flow that is ever developed for training. So I don't know how good this is going to work as well because it mislabels the painting or whatever you're doing. to confuse the AI. I don't know how well it's going to work, and they might be able to develop some filter to filter out that anyway.
And I apologize to the back end crew, and I apologize to some of the panelists. I lost track of time. I just lost track of time. I looked over, I saw Guy leave, and I was like, oh, Guy's leaving at kind of an odd time. And then I looked over, I was like, oh no, we're 8 minutes over. So I apologize. It was completely me just losing track of time. So, and again, there's a limit to the way that these things get displayed that I don't see the chat. I'm sure that they were chatting me going, hey, when are you going to finish this show? We got to go. We got other things to do. Won't happen again. I apologize. We'll make sure that it's a little clearer. I wasn't processing. Usually when on a second hour, I'm looking at time all the time. We had so many questions and we were going through them and I was just kind of in the mode. So I apologize for that.
Never, ever.
I don't know if I can say never, ever, but I'm going to do the best I can. So anyway, so we'll see. But it will not happen very often. Like maybe once or twice a year. I apologize. I just didn't see it. I wasn't ignoring it. I was just not conscious. Anyway, so thanks so much for all the great questions. A lot of great questions for the second hour. We really had a good time answering those. And thanks to the panelists. We can't do these 2-hour ones, especially without you, even any of them without you. So thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And thanks to the incredible crew who waited a little bit too late. Sorry about that. But the incredible crew that makes this happen every single day. They develop the software. They manage what we're going to talk about. They work on the they're actually cutting this show. And again, I apologize for running you late, but it's a good show. It's a good show. We did a lot there. So thanks so much for the contribution that all of you make with what we're doing. We traveled 85,000 miles today in the Tlaloc Traversal. It's 137,000 kilometers, and that is 674 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. Oof. Sorry about that. I was like, what?
I kept thinking, should I ping him? What's
Yeah, I wondered too. Yeah.
I have a problem with where my monitors sit that all I can see is the questions. So I don't see any of the chat or directs or anything else. I'm working on getting it fixed. I just don't have a way to fix it yet. So just the way that my monitors are set up at the moment, I can't see any
more
notes.
screen.
So I have to figure out where to put
Alex,
stuff
I did the same thing you did. I just looked at one. Whoa.
Yeah.
Siri, set alarm for 9 a.m.
I think when we're running out of I think the problem is that generally when we do 2 hours of Q&A, we just run out at 45 minutes into the second hour or 30 minutes. So it wasn't in my thought process that we're going to actually still have questions left over at the end of the hour. So great job by the producers. And not only did they ask a lot of questions, they just asked a lot of really good questions. I don't know. I found the conversation to be great. So anyway, thanks everybody.